Gold detecting extreme. So with that said, we got to hop over to it. Metal detecting. Okay, so the objective is to kind of poke around a little bit about what's possible, not necessarily what's probable, and that's what's going to make the extreme part interesting. But the fact of the matter is, it is possible, and therefore it should be pursued. Anyway, the idea is, well, you'll get the picture in a minute, literally, but the idea is that I want to stimulate your brains once in a while to act, get out there in the field and do stuff. One of those areas that you can act in, besides panning and sluicing and all that good stuff and dredging and whatever else you're into, is detecting, metal detecting to be specific. In fact, gold metal detecting, to be very focused, is a particular kind of detecting and usually use a particular kind of tool called a coil. We'll talk about that in a minute. But the objective here is simply to poke at, what's possible and get you thinking about what you might want to think about this year as a change-up. Or for those of you who are in detecting, you can post below comments you have about what was found in this particular case, but also what you've had in your experience. It is possible to metal detect and find nothing. Yeah, kind of like all kinds of other stuff, like gold panning, okay? This stuff, right? But when you're out there metal detecting, it's also possible, with practice and skill and the right place to look, that you can come up with something we would call a bonanza, something really worth shouting out about. Eureka, I found it, that thing, okay? And perhaps starting a gold rush of your own. But the gold here is oftentimes, we'll call it specimen spectacular, okay? Because it contains gold that is of a such unique character in every case, and each one, gold nuggets, all of them are unique. And every one of them has a unique fingerprint. When you start seeing rocks that look way too similar, even if they just look generally similar, they can be a gold nugget. If you look closely to them, look for the little dimples and the spalled material and the creases and the cracks and the scraping, because gold is so soft that it does some really interesting stuff. It folds over on itself, and then down inside you'll see the raw crystals hidden inside little gaps that you can't reproduce because they're kind of convex on top of this thing, and then concave as they go in. So they bulge out, and then they shrink into dimples that can't be reproduced because you couldn't extract the machine to reproduce them. You'd have to create the same process, which is a roaring river, and that just doesn't happen. So tonight we're going to look at some of those kinds of nuggets, and we're going to talk a bit about gold detecting. Hey, how's that? So this is our HQ. As you can see right over here, okay, Gold Prospectors HQ, and that is these nuggets. These were found metal detecting. You can find the comments here. Yanni Peroni posted, "Friend here, I present you a part of a production for the month of December, thanks to my Coil X coils." So he's pushing his coil type, and in this case, you can see his choice of coils. He's touting from the rooftops, shouting, right? He's saying, hey, look at my coils, okay? So that's kind of what detectorists do. Ask me how I know. And so we'll go back to the story. But that was one thing I wanted to bring up for Detector Extreme, because what we're going to show you tonight isn't normal. Nope, isn't normal. Is it the goal? Absolutely. And so that's the deal. When you're detecting, you're looking for just this kind of thing. And so let's flip to the picture-in-picture again. And so here we go. These are really amazing shots of some amazing gold. This one's a little blurry, so it can't even hardly tell how many kilograms I assume that is. So, we're talking that'd be about a 4-pound chunk of gold. That's a big piece. But notice what I was talking about, the dimpling and cratering. It almost looks like it's bubbled, okay? But not completely. It's rounded on the corners. See down in here? You can see this rounding right here. Let me amplify it a little bit, magnify it, and so you can see that rounding effect. Clear this. But you can see the rounding effect to some degree. You see the dimpling and sharp edge stuff up above, like right in here. And so having it rounded and sharp edged and having those dimples go in, and you can actually see crystals inside of them, even as blurry as this is, you can still see it. This is gold. This is the real stuff. Now, I also know, looking at it, just kind of based on how it looks here, okay, as opposed to how it looks in real life, because cameras can do this. You can shift colors. But I'm assuming this isn't color shifted too much. So it's a little bit on the silvery side, which tends to indicate a higher percentage of silver, electrum. No problem, but it just makes this sample that much more distinctive. See the deal? Here's the thing. If you have a lot of electrum in a sample, or in a specimen, is the case these are, okay, it might reduce its value. But in the case of something this large, who cares? The right collector is going to look at this and go, wow, as you should be doing, okay? And so that's important in the context of big metal detecting gold. You're looking for things like this. Now here's another one. Let's see, 1933 grams, so almost 2 kilograms. But look at the quality of that puppy. That's just amazing. I mean, but it's also about ready to crush his his metal scale there, okay? So beware. But also, here we go again. Notice the burnish edges right in these bright colored spots. You know, this whole zone in here is that way. Those are edges that are polished by whatever it is that polishes gold in the ground. Because typically, as you can see by how much dirt's here, these things got polished, but they really more or less stayed wherever they were in situ, and that's an indicator of where there might be more of this kind of gold, because it didn't go very far. There's a lot of structure left on this piece. Down in this area right in here, you can see a lot of mud still stuck to it. If that were cleaned off, and you got to be really careful about how you clean these things, because that can destroy their value as well. There's a whole lot of learning to do when you find one this big. One thing, keep it close, okay? Something this big is, starts to border on top secret, okay, and can be extremely valuable. The other thing about these things is, well, and therefore open to theft and hijacking and whatnot, carjacking, you name it. The point I'm getting at is that when you start to scrub them thinking that's a good thing, you might find yourself damaging it and reducing its overall value, because the big value in these guys is due to their collectors or collectability, and part of that is the character of how they came out of the ground. Believe it or not, it might be much more valuable with all the mud attached. Probably not, but pretty close, okay, about like this one is. Okay, one way to learn that I recommend is to get out there with a baggie and a couple of nugget particles and a couple of fine particles, and have somebody bury them in the sand or whatever and see if you can find them. Okay, start with something simple and big like a gold ring, and then work your way down to those particles. The particles will be tough and, if not impossible, to frustrating with a cheaper detector. The electronics don't work as well. They're not as good as discriminating the signal and noise. They're not as good as eliminating trash from the background, and they aren't as good at amplifying a weak signal. And that's all that's important to find it. And all of that is money. That's what you're paying for. So keep that in mind. Also, the kind and quality of the wires that go into the coils and how they're wound and all that stuff plays a role in the expense of those things. So it's all kind of fun and games. Also, there are little tricks like how you use the thing and how you tie your coil wires so that they don't wave around, because if they move around, they alter the signal. That's how weak the signal is, because there's stuff always around us. As they wave, they induce another signal into the signal, and that creates a problem. So these are all little tips I leave you for tonight. Prospector Jess, I hope this is interesting to you, and get out there and try and find yourself some gold. And maybe something, kind of this big. Wouldn't that be fun? So, I'll leave you with that for tonight. Good prospecting and good detecting to the extreme and beyond. Take care. Prospector Jess over and out. See you then.